Well, the whole silly business started with a theory by Professor Werner von Beige.
I figured that the North Pole is so heavy with ice that it's starting to wobble like this. And the new North Pole is really going to be the West Pole. Wild, nicht wahr?
At first, the professor's theory didn't impress the world scientists very much.
I tell you, Sir Basil, Von Beige has flipped his wig.
Ho, 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 that's ripping.
What did he say, Basil?
He said Von Beige has inverted his rudder toupee.
But people found it less amusing when the weather actually began to change.
Extreme rain in Dry Gulch. Another snowstorm in Miami.
I told you we should have gone to California instead.
You kidding? There they got big floods.
Yeah, but that's normal.
But even more remarkable things were happening in northern Labrador, where Eskimos were demanding bigger and better refrigerators and freezers.
Well, I'm sure you'll be delighted with this one, Mrs. Umiak. Lots of room for food storage.
Food storage, my eye! This new house!
So there may be something to the professor's theory after all.
You said it, Charlie.
But now let's rejoin Rocky and Bullwinkle, who are floating in parachutes toward the new North Pole, the island of Rikki-Tikki.
Looks like we're in for trouble, Bullwinkle. Look there.
The natives were brandishing a forest of sharp spears, led by their chief.
All right, gang, let's hit it with it. And a one and a two.
Weather like a moo-moo. Pui, pui. Make it like a boo-boo. Pui, pui.
Sounds pretty ominous.
And downright mean, too.
Weather like a moo-moo.
Pui, pui. Make it like a boo-boo. Pui, pui.
Hey, Bullwinkle, you notice anything funny?
If I did, I'd be the first to mention it.
We're not falling anymore. We're going up.
Up, impossible.
But strange as it seems, our heroes had reversed direction, for every time the natives said,
Pui, pui.
they sent a gust of air upward that lifted the parachute skyward again.
Weather like a moo-moo. Pui, pui. Make it like a boo-boo. Pui, pui.
Hold it, you guys. What kind of spear dance is that? Who wrote those lines?
You ride them, Colonel.
Take that man's name and serial number.
But, Colonel, you ask him question.
When I want a honest answer, I'll tell him you.
Meanwhile, our heroes were drifting downward again, some distance away.
Well, looks like we're safe for a little while, Bullwinkle. I better go down ahead and find a good landing place.
Go down ahead?
Sure, did you forget I'm a flying squirrel?
Then how come you didn't fly away when them fellers are playing shish kebab with us?
And leave my old buddy? Never.
I should have knowed.
Well, I'll find us all a good place to stay. Bye now.
Golly, what a pal. Makes a feller come all over Gulpy.
But our boys had once again underestimated their opponent, who now stood in a clearing talking to two fierce-looking hawks.
Okay, Howard, Emery, this is your target for tonight. Got it? Good.
Boris, you sure they'll do the job?
Of course, these are only hawks in the world with stainless steel beaks.
What about their talons?
What else? Every little pinky dipped in poison. Just one scratch and squirrel is kaput.
Oh, darling, you've done it again.
Naturally.
But how did you ever find birds with poison talons?
It's easy, Natasha. I called an agent.
Agent?
Not an agent, really. More of a talon scout.
And as if to get away from such a dreadful joke, the two hawks flapped off toward their prey. How will Rocky fare against these marauders of the sky? We'll find out next time in Boris Goes for Broke, or A Fiend in Need is a Fiend Indeed.
Probably never heard of the Clinker family. They lived in Holland many, many years ago. That's their little house right under the windmill. In fact, windmills are Papa Clinker's specialty. He repairs them. But not very well.
Papa, the windmill just fell down.
Is it still turning around?
Yeah, but it's turning around on the ground.
Who cares so long as it's still turning?
Papa and Mama Clinker had two lovely children, a girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, and a little boy with blue hair and blonde eyes. The girl's name was Brunhilde, which in Dutch means she who steps on tulips. The little boy, oddly enough, had no name at all, until one day...
Brunhilde! Yeah, Mama? Go wash your hands.
Brunhilde promptly dunked her brother in the washtub, and that's how Hans Klinker got his name.
Hans, today you are 3 years old, and it's time you got a job.
Okay, mein Papa. I will deliver papers.
Unfortunately, the papers Hans delivered belonged to his father, and they were of the legal variety, such as mortgage on the house, insurance policies, liberty bonds.
Hans, baby, this morning you was 3 years old, and I think already it's time you change jobs.
So, little Hans went to work down at the waterfront.
Yeah, that's right, little boy. All you gotta do is keep your finger stuck in the hole in the dam.
But why, sir?
Well, if there is no finger in the dam, the water will pour through and flood the country.
A job as a dam plugger didn't pay very much, but you did go home with a very clean finger. But alas, a tourist came by seeking the whereabouts of the nearest Travelers' Aid Society. Hans pointed.
Hans, this morning you was 3 years old and you got your first job. This afternoon you was 3 years old and you changed jobs. Tonight you are still 3 years old and you're going into retirement.
But mein Papa, I am too young to be idle.
The boy is right, Papa. He needs a vacation.
Vocation, Mama.
All right already. What would you like to do, Hans?
I want to be a tubaphone player.
And what's a tubaphone?
It's a tuba with a phone inside it. Listen.
The sounds that filled the air had a strange, soothing effect, not only on Papa, Mama, and Brunhilde, but also on the cows and the chickens. Hans Klinker was a born musician.
Of course, I could only play a few notes. But if I could study at the Amsterdam Conservatory of Music...
How much would that cost?
50 million klunkels.
That astronomical figure caused Papa Klinker to take a fast nap in the center of the living room.
Why doesn't Hans try and win 50 million klunkels in the Zuyder Zee skating contest?
Yes, once each year, the icy blasts of winter transformed the Zuyder Zee into a sheet of ice. Youngsters from all over the Netherlands put on their skates and entered the big race, a race which netted the victor 50 million klunkels.
Good luck, Hans.
You can win, Hans.
Oh, it grieves me sorely to relate that Hans Klinker finished dead last. This was due to two things. One, he lacked the speed of most Dutch boys his age, and two, he lacked a pair of skates.
Don't worry, Hans, Pupchen, there's always next year.
But again, it was the same story. Last in a field of 3,000.
I don't understand it, Papa. Even with a new pair of skates, I couldn't win.
Perhaps if you was to wear them on your feet instead of your elbows.
Hans tried that the following year, and it did help a little. He came in next to last, barely beating out an octogenarian who had fallen through a hole in the ice.
It's no use. I never got to study at the Amsterdam Conservatory.
And off he trudged into the snow-covered forest. Winter turned to spring, spring turned to summer, and still Hans walked.
I am worried about our boy, Papa.
Which boy is that, Mama?
You know, Hans.
Oh, yeah, Hans. Whatever happened to him?
What happened to him was this. Hans walked right out of Holland into Denmark. Now, you've all heard the saying, something is rotten in Denmark? Well, the something that was rotten was an old castle that had been sitting on top of a hill for centuries and centuries. And inside, there was a sleeping giant. And just above the giant hung a pair of skates.
Why, there are silver skates. If I had those skates, I know I could win the Zuyder Zee race.
Ah, but how do you make off with a pair of skates that are guarded by a sleeping giant?
This is how.
Seconds later, Hans and the skates were on their way back to Holland. Well, all fairy tales have happy endings, and this one is no exception. Hans and the silver-plated skates won the next Zuyder Zee race, and with the 50 million klunkels, Hans entered the Amsterdam Conservatory of Music, where he played tubaphone in the symphony orchestra. And oh, how grand the conductor led his musicians. Although he did hit a clinker every once in a while.
Well, last time, you remember, as our heroes were trying to land on the island of Ricky Ticky, Rocky slipped out of his parachute harness and began to reconnoiter the island. At the same time, the notorious Boris Badenov, masquerading as Colonel Oglethorpe Peachtree, had released two vicious hawks named Howard and Emery to attack Rocky in the air. Meanwhile, what of our other two friends, Professor Von Beige and Captain Peachfuzz?
Never mind us. Get on with the story.
Well, the two feathered killers rode through the air searching for our hero and at last spotted him. In a few seconds, they were diving swiftly at our unsuspecting hero, one from one side, one from the other. But the attack hadn't gone unnoticed.
Jumpin' G horse fat! Rocky! Look out! Beware! Achtung!
It was no use. Rocky was too far below to hear Bullwinkle's bellowing.
Well, I can clout one of them hawks anyway.
And Bullwinkle hurled his binoculars down at the attackers. Unfortunately, they went right past the hawks and...
Ow!
Yes, the heavy glasses knocked Rocky into a spin just as his two pursuers closed in on him. As a result... Yes, the two hawks had destroyed each other as a result of Bullwinkle's wily stratagem.
No, it was more of a sidearm curveball.
But...
Almost a knuckler.
I mean...
And I took a little off it, too.
Well, anyway, Rocky finally recovered enough to pull out of his spin.
Gee, I must have hit an air pocket.
Meanwhile, in the clearing below, Boris was unaware of what had happened until...
Ow!
What is it, darling?
These glasses fell out of sky and... Oh, boy.
What is it, Boris?
You don't suppose there really is somebody up there who's watching all the time?
Not through these, anyway. Look.
Property of Bullwinkle Moose. Give me those.
And as Boris looked through the glasses...
Moose is okay, Squirrel is okay, Hawks are kaput. Oh, Natasha, do you ever get these days where everything goes right?
No, knock 'em off, Squirrel, Colonel Buona.
No, after him, you idiots.
No.
And remember, first idiot to catch him gets Squirrel Tail for his radio aerial. See? You got to provide worthwhile incentives, Natasha.
Only one thing, Boris.
Yes?
Why we're doing all this?
What?
What is your fiendish plot?
I thought you'd never ask. Hold that! Everybody hold that! That's better. Now, fiendish plot. It all starts with the professor's theory. Too much ice at North Pole. World tips over this way and we got new North Pole, right?
Right.
And this very island will be the new North Pole.
But what's that got to do with
Think, Natasha. Who lives at North Pole?
penguins?
That's South Pole. Who lives at North Pole?
Give me a hint.
You know, jingle bells, jingle la la la.
Swiss bell ringers.
No. With a beard and the ho, and jingle bell, jingle bell.
I've got it, Boris.
Who?
Mitch Miller.
Yeah. No, you idiot woman. Santa Claus.
Boris, you say the naughty word.
It's all in a good cause, Natasha.
What cause?
Santa Claus?
You mean?
Yes. I, Boris Badenov, am going to be the new Santa. How about that, Natasha? Natasha? She fainted.
But we'll find out more about Boris's mad scheme in our next episode, The Fright Before Christmas, or A Visit from St. Nicolaus.
And now, here's that man with a head just crammed full of knowledge, Mr. Know-It-All.
I was wondering why they always call me Fathead. Hello there, friends. Today our subject is from my bestseller, How to Win Friends and Be Influential with People. I quote, pick out something about a person that you admire, tell them about it, and they will surely be your friend. Pardon me kindly, sir, but I couldn't help admiring your hair. You certainly are fortunate to have such fine, sturdy, good-looking, healthy, well-groomed hair. Mind if I take it home and admire it under a better light? Learn the interests and hobbies of those you would like to have as your friends. That's why I have thoroughly studied all the subjects that interest this man that's coming now. Hello there again, kindly sir. You may be interested to know that I am an expert on bowling, baseball, and croquet. Those are his favorites. From my best-selling page 35, I quote, sometimes those you seek may seem standoffish. It's just that they are shy. Obviously the case here. It simply means you must bring them out by doing little favors for them. Let me carry your package, kindly sir. Oh, I insist. Now you'll see the beginning of a real friendship.
Gee, Mr. Know-It-All, can't you win any friends with that book of yours?
Oh, sure, Rock. One man promised to be my friend for the rest of my life because of this book.
Who was that?
The publisher. I promised never to write another one.
Peabody here with another serving of instant history.
The Wayback Machine's all set to go, Mr. Peabody.
So are we, Sherman. Our course for today is due north.
You mean north?
I mean Norse. We are going to Norway. The year is 995, and the unforgettable personality we shall palaver with will be none other than that renowned explorer, Leif Erikson. The transition through time was instantaneous. Good old reliable Wayback deposited us right on the Norwegian shores. However, we were anything but prepared for the sight that greeted us. For there, staggering out of the sea, came Leif Erikson, followed by his crew.
What happened, Mr. Erikson?
I forgot to take the boat.
Sure enough, in his haste to discover uncharted lands, the formidable globetrotter had neglected to sail off in his ship.
I knew there was something missing, but I wasn't sure. All right, you men, into the boat.
We watched in silence as Leif took leave of the shore. The sturdy Viking craft pulled away, surged proudly forward, caught a favorable current, and sank.
Jumpen Jiminy!
Another boat was launched. Unfortunately, this one, too, made dubious progress.
I don't understand it. Every time I climb aboard the boat, the dang busted thing sinks.
Maybe you're too heavy, Mr. Erikson.
Well, Mr. Erikson wasn't, but his beard was.
Wow, 200 pounds.
When we grow a beard, we don't fool around.
Leif, I'm afraid that beard has got to go.
By ye Horsefat, no. I had this beard ever since I was a little tinker, and where I go, it goes.
Why not weigh everything on a boat, and whatever weighs 200 pounds leave behind? Then the beard can go.
Sherman's idea was a sound one. Unreasonably sound, for after weighing the crew, the supplies, even the anchor, it was found the only thing that weighed exactly 200 pounds was the boat itself.
And we tried sailing without the boat before. It's not as comfortable.
The beard, Leif, you have no alternative. A nearby barber went into action, and 10 minutes later...
All done. How does he look?
Well groomed, I'm sure. If it weren't for one slight oversight, you see, you cut off his coat collar, not his beard. Back to work went the disappointed barber, but at the end of an hour...
It's no use. This beard been too tough for my clippers.
A hammer and chisel were brought into play, all to no avail. In desperation, Leif even allowed himself to be packed in blasting powder. But when the smoke cleared, the beard was still unsheared.
That's weird.
Say, I think I know how to do it. I'll be right back.
We were so concerned that we decided to follow him. A mile or so inland, we caught up with him.
What are you going to do with that torch, Mr. Erikson?
Yes, and whose house is this?
Well, you see, I figured this way. The one sure way to make hair fall out is to worry.
So saying, he applied the torch to the building.
Jeepers, the place is a shambles.
Your house, Leif?
No, it belongs to the King of Norway.
Wait till he finds out you burned it down. Are you worried?
Not yet, but I got one more thing to do.
Before we could stop him, he sped off down a road, and who should be coming along but the king himself?
Leif Erikson, as I live and breathe.
The King of Norway. Just who I'm looking for.
Summoning all his strength, Leif picked up his highness and deposited him in a nearby mud hole.
Arrest that man! Put him in the hoosegow!
Now you've done it, Mr. Erikson. Instead of sailing away, you'll be in jail.
True, Sonny, but now I'm worried.
Leif Erikson was carted away, and for 2 hours, Sherman and I implored the king to have mercy.
You see, Your Majesty, he was only trying to have something to worry about, so he'd lose his beard and be able to discover uncharted lands.
Well, in that case, I forgive him.
Leif was brought before us.
Well, Mr. Erikson, did all the worrying cause you to lose your beard?
No, but I did lose my hair.
Leif was bald. His beard was as prominent as ever.
It's hopeless, Mr. Peabody.
Nothing is hopeless, Sherman. I gathered some grass roots and made a potion which I applied to the persistent beard.
Will that make it fall off?
On the contrary, it will make it grow. Inside of 20 seconds, the beard grew 2 feet.
Now it weighs 300 pounds.
Precisely, and if you recall, so did the anchor. Well, Leif Erikson finally sailed away and eventually discovered Greenland. Of course, when it came time to drop the anchor, Leif was a trifle put out.
Golly, he sure had his troubles, didn't he, Mr. Peabody?
Yes, but there was a brighter side. For instance, Sherman, standing by the rail there is his son.
Gee, Mr. Peabody, for a minute there, I was afraid you were going to make some awful pun about Leif Erik's son.
Well, I was going to. Instead, I think we'll just say he turned over a new leaf.
last time, you remember, Natasha had made Boris a happy heel by inquiring...
But, Boris, what is your fiendish plan this time?
I thought you'd never ask, and this one is a Lulu.
Yes, you remember that according to Professor von Beche's theory, the North Pole was so top-heavy with ice that the world was tilting over sideways and would soon have a new North Pole.
And where will the new North Pole be?
I give up, darling. Where?
Right here, Natasha, on the island of Rikki Tikki. In a couple of months, we'll be living at the North Pole.
So?
So, who lives at the North Pole? I give you 3 guesses.
Santa Claus, Judge Crater, and the Lane sisters.
George Crater and the Lane sisters?
I didn't want to waste the other 2 guesses, darling.
Oh. So guess now who's going to be the new Santa Claus?
Oh, not you, Boris.
You're not just whistling Ochicharnia.
But for badness sake, why?
Use your head, Natasha. Just think. First, I get to wear big white beard. In disguise, no?
I guess.
Then, on Christmas Eve, I start out in bulletproof sleigh and visit everybody's house. Down the chimney I go and... Ho, ho, ho! Stick 'em up! And for the first time in history, Santa Claus carries presents up the chimney instead of down.
Oh, marvelous, darling.
Say, I could even visit the First National Bank. Ho, 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 ho! Here's a Christmas card from old Santa.
Season's greetings. Hand over the cash. But...
What's the matter? You don't have the spirit of giving?
But I thought...
And don't try to ring the alarm. My elves got you covered. Just think, from now on, Santa goes back to North Pole with a sleigh full of loot. Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas, boys. Here's your coat.
Thanks, Eddie.
And remember, try to double-cross jolly old Santy and you go for a one-way sleigh ride.
Yeah,
Sure.
I tell you, Natasha, the Jingle Bells racket is worth billions.
Boris, this is the meanest, crookedest, most low-down thing you have ever done.
I thought you'd like it.
Unaware of all this, our boy Rocky the Flying Squirrel was still diving earthward, groggy from a blow on the head. Then at the last minute...
Where am I? Uh-oh. Gee, I must have blacked out for a second. I better land in that clear until my head stops buzzing.
Little did Rocky dream that clearing was surrounded by the fierce natives of Rikki Tikki, every native holding a sharp spear except for one who was holding a large pot and a cookbook. Meanwhile, back at the Moose, Bullwinkle was having troubles of his own.
Great gobs of gruffy dust. Things look mighty rugged down there.
They did that, for Bullwinkle was headed straight down toward a swamp full of man-eating crocodiles.
Yeah, and I got a hunch they're moose eaters, too.
Well, there was only one thing for an intelligent, cool-headed moose to do. He tried to climb up inside his parachute. Of course, the parachute instantly collapsed on one side and slid sideways, just enough sideways to carry Bullwinkle out of danger and let him land safely. No sooner had he hit the ground than...
Bullwinkle! Help!
That's Rocky, and he's in trouble.
Of course, Bullwinkle started off to Rocky's aid, but he'd forgotten all about his parachute, which at that moment enveloped him in yards and yards of yards and yards, so that he couldn't move. Well, it looks as if Rocky is really in a stew.
Not yet, but it's only a matter of time.
Be with us for our next red-hot episode, Soup's On, or Rocky Goes to Pot.